Hey guys, Hussam here. Just very quickly before we start, Guillaume and I have partnered up with Automation Boutique to write a brand new ebook for you guys called Going Beyond the Buzzwords. It's an amazing ebook that goes through all the things about automation, data, and processing that just simplifies the topics just in the way that we do all the time in Corporate Treasury 101. To pick up your copy, just go into the show notes and click on the link, or go to the website and find the partners page where we have a link to the ebook there as well with Automation Boutique. And then here's the episode.
Welcome to this very, very special episode of the Corporate Treasury 101 podcast. We are here just together with Hussam and I for this 200th episode of the City 101 show. We've asked you to ask us questions for a special Q&A session for this episode. And this is what we're about to cover. So Hussam, welcome. It's just you and I today.
I swear not having guests. We haven't had an episode with just the two of us since, I think, episode 100-ish. That's when we started getting guests.
Probably something like that regularly, yeah. Mike was what, episode 60 or something like that? Like it was 4 months after that.
And there was a gap in between.
True.
There was a gap in between where we was just two of us again. But yeah, it's not been the two of us in a while.
I'm happy to be here with you, Hussam.
I love being here with you as well, Gil. This is intimate.
Absolutely. Lovely. All right, so we received some amazing questions, and let's dive into them. So how about I ask you the first question, Hussam? So this is a question about us, actually, about Corporate Treasury 101. So the whole question is why? What makes you want to do Corporate Treasury 101? Where do you see the future of the podcast going in the future? Sorry, convoluted three-parted, but asking them anyways and looking forward to the answer. So what do you think, Hussam? What makes us do Corporate Treasury 101 and why are we doing that?
Well, I mean, let's give the story first, right? We do this podcast because, Guillaume, your background is in corporate treasury, right? So that's kind of what got us started. What kept us going was, well, we wanted to make the podcast as big as we could. And we knew that the number one rule to making any podcast grow is consistency. So we kind of have to keep going.
No choice anymore.
But I think also, I think a lot of people thought, and we thought as well, or we kind of just trusted, but didn't really have the answer to how are we going to get to 200 episodes. But topics just keep coming up. There's new interesting topics. We keep finding new guests that have a different take. Every new guest that we have our pre-brief calls with has a specific topic. We're like, oh, we haven't covered it from this angle yet, and we haven't covered it from that angle yet. Oh, we didn't look at it from this perspective. And somehow topics just keep coming, or interesting conversations just keep happening. And then that momentum of just, we haven't talked about, layered hedging, which I know there's a topic we're going to talk about today before. We haven't talked about virtual accounts before. Things are still coming up 200 episodes later. In a niche such as corporate treasury, being so specific, I think it's just a broad remit to the field overall, which allows us to just keep going and keep finding interesting conversations.
100%. Couldn't agree more. Yeah, and the part you said about everybody has a different take on it, well, it's a bit like math for certain aspects, right? There are some certain base principles of treasury that it's just once you know it, it is what it is. Foreign exchange risk management is something we've talked a lot on the show with many different guests, and it's very interesting indeed to see, okay, what does it mean from a corporate perspective? What does it mean from a system vendor perspective? What does the consultant has to say? What does the bank has to say? What does the broker has to say? And it all comes down to everybody has a different story. And sometimes, because it's also about learning about treasury, inspiring about treasury, we end up having maybe a story that hit a certain brain center more than another. And that makes the whole magic. So we keep on learning even after talking, I think, for a good 15, at least a good dozen episodes about foreign exchange risk management. But also I was surprised to see how topical treasury can become. When I started in March 2022, it was about explaining corporate treasury, right? We were at the very beginning of a hike and rise in interest rates. And all of a sudden, corporate treasury arrived at the forefront of all the financial department because we're like, the banks need to be saved because, they cannot really handle the rise in interest rate. What does that mean? What does more money mean on the market? What does less money mean on the markets? How are we going to handle that? What does it mean for the corporate and so on and so forth? So treasury somehow, and I would have never thought saying that, can be topical, but most importantly, we just can't stop talking about it, which is fun. Quite a lot of fun and quite great spirit we had talked with on the show.
Yeah, and I don't think I know 200 more topics, but I also trust the fact that we probably will find them. And just knowing that we didn't think we'd be here at 200 today.
100%.
So
100%. And to tease a bit what's happening what's going to happen in 2024, we recently recorded an episode on changing in regulation in a certain industry that is in direct link with corporate treasury. And it's crazy. It's crazy to see the impact that certain changes in regulation can have, let alone the technology part of things, but like just regulation. Just, hey, the EU is launching this new thing. This is what you should take into account because otherwise you're going to lose millions, to say the least. And it's like, oh, wow, all of a sudden, Treasury has to transform. Treasury has to adapt. And if one thing is for sure is that regulation change all the time. Death is sure. Tax is certain. I think regulation is highly linked to all that. Maybe not death. But yeah, definitely lots to talk about. So what's for the future of City 101, Hussam? What do you see for the future for us?
So, Guillaume, for the future, I guess it's more of the same, right? We're going to find 200 more topics to talk about. I'm sure of it. And I'm sure we're going to find where those topics are going to be intersecting and simplifying them for corporate treasurers. Mm-hmm. I think that's going to be the main thing. I think the next episodes that we have recorded in the new year are exactly that. They're complex topics broken down. We've already got, I think, March up until March recorded.
Yeah, correct.
So, like, great topics, great guests, all talking about very important things for corporate treasurers. But again, taking away the jargon, making it simpler. Mm-hmm. The YouTube is growing. That's been going really well. Hopefully, you're going to be seeing some Corporate Treasury 101 TikTok style shorts in the future soon as well. And the website's growing as well. So that's really, really cool also. We've got some cool collaborations coming up, new ebooks coming out, like the one that's featured in this episode at the start with Automation Boutique. Mm-hmm. So more of just the same, which is simplifying treasury topics in languages that people can understand and not feel embarrassed to learn about the basics of treasury, no matter how senior they are.
Amen.
What do you think, Guillaume?
No, 100% in line with you, Hussam. The one thing I would add is that, by the numbers, we are growing, meaning even though we are tackling indeed more and more complex topics and going into more and more details, we still, as you very properly said, keep a corporate treasury and a 101 touch, which I think is important for our audience, but also for us. That's a bit the DNA of the show. And we have a bit like mixed comments on some LinkedIn posts. Overall, it's very, very positive, the feedback we receive. We had a couple of comments saying, hey, but that's not 101 at all. Or other comments saying, hey, but it's too basic. You need to go much more in depth. And it's very funny to tackle both those comments. The first one is, if anybody wants to really start with the basics, that's what we created the show for. And I think the first 150 episodes are really about covering each and every single topic in Treasury. There are still some coming up that we deep dive more and more into, but there is still a good, let's say, 100 episodes which are really what is cash management, what is financial risk management, and so on and so forth, where we break down everything, sometimes bringing in experts to talk about it. So I think we have tons of resources out there for those people who wants to either get started in Treasury or go back to the basics on certain points. And to the other people saying it was on a financial risk management FX coincidence post infographic that we did, that somebody was like, but this is way too simple, you need to go much more in depth. And we're like, yeah, that's what we stand for. We want to make it simple so anybody can understand. And it's great because if people are saying this, it means it's literally what we are aiming for. So that's great. For the future, we're gonna keep on doing the same. More thought leaders, more people coming and sharing their knowledge and experience. I think one of the great benefits of the podcast, we're going to reflect on it a bit at the end of this episode, but is that we get access to the greatest minds of Treasury to come and explain us some stuff and tell us their story, which is absolutely amazing. It's going to be more of that in 2024. Who knows, indeed, maybe some shorts and nice short form content adapted for Treasury. We want to do things right and well. So we really focused on LinkedIn with the infographics, with the carousels, where we break down topics again and like make it more visual, because that's the small drawback from the podcast. It's only audio. But now indeed people can find us on YouTube. So yeah, more of the same and more amazing guests for 2024. That's what we have. And I think that's what people want to hear, want to watch. So we are just getting there.
100%. All right, Guillaume, let me ask you the next question then. So
Please.
we had a guest that said that their biggest challenge that they face in Treasury is getting staff who have a data-driven mindset. What would you say? What would you say about that?
Yeah, this one is very interesting because we had quite some guests without us particularly asking for that particular aspect of treasury. They brought it up as leaders in their treasury departments or within system vendors. And actually, to quote them, so we had a focus on this particular topic with Bart Hendricks, which by the time was a senior treasurer in I don't remember the name of the company. It's a logistic company, and TIS leadership. Both of them said that, and I think obviously lots of people are saying that data is becoming critical in treasury. AI has taken that to a whole new level. But if we just look at, okay, how do we do proper cash flow forecasting? How do we do even cash positioning and cash management and cash flow forecasting for the more advanced? Like it all comes to data, the quality of your data. How do you collect them? First of all, where are they, and how can you pull them to a central location to like analyze them properly and then manage the data and like make them tell the story that will help you make better decision making. And how to have a staff who has a more data-driven mindset. I think that's a work in progress. We had some interesting thought leaders talking about the fact that it might be sometimes more interesting for a treasury department to look for data analysts that they would train in treasury management rather than training treasury managers or finance professionals with data management, which is a very interesting take because like data is becoming so critical, and it's good to have somebody in your team who is like, you can go to them for anything related to data. And I like that, and it means like more challenges for treasury professionals that they need to upskill in that particular aspect. But that's good, and that's good stuff because you get to learn. That's definitely a skill that you're going to be able to leverage in any part of your corporate life and in your career because data is becoming more and more critical. There is this quote that you and I like a lot, Hussam, which is software is eating the world. Well, data is at the foundation of this. So if you know just your little bit about data management, I think you can go a long way. So that doesn't answer quite the question yet. How to have a more data-driven mindset team? I think it's about training. It's about sensibilization, like education around it, like explaining why it's important, always starting with the why. Like, hey, we need to know about data because this is the impact, this is what's at stake. And then once people understand how important it is, they are much more likely to get, okay, I need to get up to speed with that. So culture, explaining the why, and having the proper training with your team to clearly have that data-driven mindset. And then why not bring somebody in-house from the outside world who has a more data-driven mindset that could educate and foster that kind of approach of things through data. That's my take on it. What about you, Hussam? What do you think? How to make that happen in treasury teams, people having more of a data-driven mindset?
I mean, my corporate career, I never worked in treasury, but I did work in organizations that wanted us all to be more data-driven for sure and have those kind of things. And if I look at what they did, that I found effective. Training is the 101 of it, really. You need to make sure that people are actually capable of it. But if you look at what holds people back a lot of the time, a big part of it is I don't know how to. And a lot of the time, red tape holds people back as well. So also looking at, okay, what's the friction that's stopping people from getting some new software which is better at analyzing some bit of data, some plugins for Excel? Does your company have very strict policies around third-party software, for example, that just makes it too difficult to have to go through jump through all those loopholes, to jump through all of those different hoops to be able to get your thing going, right? For just 5 less minutes every day, right? It's like, okay, to get 5 less minutes every day, I need to go through a month of approvals. Like no one's gonna do that, right? So how easy is it for people to enforce change? Like if you want to automate your systems better, like is it easy for people to integrate third-party tools like Zapier or like RPA tools, right? Mm-hmm. Is that easy to do inside your company? If not, how can you make it easier? So can you make a sandbox? Can you go out, bring in tools, and then say, hey, look, these tools are now here. Find the use cases for it. And the other thing is, how do you incentivize people to be more data-driven overall? Is it, look, I'm not going to approve anything unless you show me the data, right? That's as simple as that. From now on, I need to see at least this. Clarity is a big part of anything that you want out of your team. So being clear on, look, this is what's required to be able to move forward on these decisions. Which goes back to your point about the why.
Yeah.
I think that's super important as well. So enabling your team and figuring out what's slowing them down from doing it. Is it they don't know how to? Is it they feel like it's too much effort? And how do you simplify that? Is it because they don't have the tools and they don't want to go out and find the tools because they think it's going to be a big deal to bring? Because we're talking to corporate treasurers, right? Corporate treasurers are working at multi-billion-dollar companies most of the time.
Yeah.
Those multi-billion-dollar companies have governance. They have cybersecurity. They have all these different things, right? If I look at when I was working in a company, like now being in a much smaller company, I feel like I'm using a lot more data and automation in my day-to-day. I've also reflected on why I didn't when I was working for a big company. And it's just that. I was like, it's just too much effort to get software approved there. And now I don't have to. Now I've got an open... Cybersecurity might be a bit of a consideration in that. But just like having to say, oh, I want to get this thing inside the firewall. Oh, such an effort to get something to talk inside my firewall in my company. That it was like, I was like, no, I'll just do the little bit extra effort that it requires.
Fair.
If I reflect, I think that was a big deal of it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not sure what you're talking about, Hussam. We have a super strong cybersecurity system in place at Corporate Treasury 101. Definitely.
We do. But we also allow for improvements.
That's true. That's absolutely true.
And that's it, right? Enabling it. I think that's the key thing. I think everything that we do, we talk about it. We're like, yep, it looks good. Let's spend the money and let's implement it. So I think that's why.
Yeah, particularly like your take on how to incentivize that. I think that's the right approach for that person asking the question. Really, really like it. Let me ask you the next question, Sam. And it's actually a very, I think, quite technical one. What is the value of virtual account management, and can treasury teams in-house in function?
Yeah, so I have no idea. It's just
perfect.
But in the Corporate Treasury 101 spirit, I actually called up someone I've been working with for a very, very long time now, and we have a Corporate Treasury 101, although they've not been on the show yet. We have friends at a fintech, actually, in London called Integrated Finance. Integrated Finance is a fintech platform for people to come and build embedded finance tools on top of. Well, basically they're an API aggregator. So all the different banks that have all their different APIs, they don't talk to each other. Right? They never talk to each other. In fact, what Daniel said to me off the recording, and I wish I had caught this in the recording with him, he was like, Deutsche Bank and Barclays are both building APIs, but they're not talking to each other. In fact, it's the opposite. Deutsche Bank is continuously looking at Barclays API, for example, and saying, how can we make ours better? Right? Really? So not only are they going in different directions, they're looking at each other and trying to one-up each other all the time. So there's just no standardization in APIs. So Integrated Finance solves that problem by building all those integrations and then having one API that treasurers, for example, can integrate into their system. But Daniel gave a really, really good explanation of this, and here it is. This is how we got into podcasting overall and start our agency and everything like that. As we're on for like a year and a half, etc., where we talk about corporate treasury, which my business partner, he was a consultant at PwC in treasury. And so we've had that running for a really long time. And for our 200th episode, we thought we would do a Q&A. And one of the questions came up was this virtual accounts question for corporates. And there was a couple others that we had no clue what the answer to that was. And so we thought, okay, tell you what, let's call experts and make like a mashup episode, like answering each of the questions. So there's one on hedging, on FX, and et cetera, et cetera. So we called up someone that we know, a broker, FX broker, is doing that. And then we got the virtual accounts one, and we're like, who could we know? And then we said, well, IF does virtual accounts issuing, or does part of their integrations, as all the work I've been doing with you guys has demonstrated. So I thought, why not message you, Daniel, and ask you about it, if you'd be comfortable to. But what are virtual accounts? Because I actually don't know.
I just sent you the most boring blog I've ever done. It's a 30-page thriller on virtual accounts.
Okay.
It's probably the deepest topic I've ever bothered to dive in that wasn't Lord of the Rings. So virtual accounts in my industry is really a bastardized tool to make like a bank. Hey, look at me, I'm a bank because I've given you a virtual bank account. Where they originally stem from was large corporates who had a a real pain handling their accounts receivable solutions. So imagine you had a huge bowl and everyone owed you a penny. A million people owed you a penny and everyone tossed their penny in. And then you had 999,000 pennies. And so you're missing 1,000. Well, you go into your jar and you're like, I don't know whose this is. And so you'll that was effectively what's happening to large corporates on invoicing. So you imagine, I don't know, let's say you're Coca-Cola and you've got 35,000 distributors in Europe. And so they all have to pay you for whatever reason. Humans are humans. Pay early if they're hyper-organized. They pay late if they're disorganized. They pay on time if they're regular organized. They overpay. And some people are lazy, don't read the invoice. Some people miss the tax. Some people underpay because they're stupid. Some people underpay because they don't actually have enough money. Some people don't pay at all because they're forgetful or dishonest or just a human. And so at scale, having all of this cash pile into one bank account is almost impossible for an AR team to reconcile. So what these guys were doing is they're setting up hundreds of bank accounts for different jurisdictions. Now that helped solve the problem, but the cost of maintaining all of those bank accounts it wasn't worth the pain, and really wasn't a scalable solution. So whilst I don't know the specifics around how it happened, something tells me if an FD at Apple or BP or Coca-Cola went, Mr. Bank, this is a pain, fix it or I'll leave. And one of the banks went to their chief technologist and said, we can't lose Coca-Cola, we'll be fired, so fix it. And so what they came up was with this idea of virtual accounts. And really just they're accounts that don't hold balances effectively. Think of them like forwarding rules on your emails. Imagine you're a small company and you want to look like you're a bigger company. So when you sign your first customer, you email them the invoice from finance at mrwhatever.com, but it's really from me. And when they don't pay, you get your sales team to chase them, which is me again. So I send the chaser from sales at whatever.com. And then when my customer doesn't pay on time, I better get out the big boys. So I put debt collectors at blah blah.com. But it's me sending those 3 emails. Virtual accounts are exactly the same. Rather than you putting a reference number on your invoice and hoping to dear God that the person actually types that in on their payment when they pay, you can just do away with that. Because what is a bank account at the end of the day? It's a reference. It's Barclays' unique identifier for me as a customer. And so effectively, what virtual accounts allows is you to give every single customer, in theory, a different bank account number to pay into. And so when they pay in, it hits that bank account, virtual bank account, and it just routes up to the house account. And so rather than you sifting through hundreds of thousands of payments in a single bank account, you can just look at each individual virtual account, and if none of them ever received a transaction, you can quickly identify, okay, here are the virtual accounts that have never received any money, and each virtual account is for a different distributor, so I need to beat that distributor up to get my money. That was the principal use of it. It's just a redirect of funds, and it's primarily, although not exclusively, used for receivables, to collect money in a more automated fashion and to understand who has and hasn't paid. That's the most common use case of it.
Okay. And is there a specific way of managing it? Like, do we need to, does typically your bank offer that, or is that third party?
So typically the bigger the bank, the more likely they are to offer that as a specific function. I know who's the most common? So the most common one I know of is Citibank, and they have a function called Payer ID. And so the clue for the functionality is kind of in the name: identify who's paid you. So Citibank, for sure, you'd be able to get it as an addendum product to their Treasury suite. I know it's being popularized across most tier 1s, but then you have a lot of tier 2s do it. Tier 2s tend not to have the same treasury requirements that a tier 1 customer would, but often it's the fintechs, it's the It's the non-banking financial institutions that will want to use it from the tier 2 banks. And the very simple idea is when you register a user, you can say, here's your user bank account. This is exclusive to you. Some fintechs have gotten very snazzy and they can actually send money out through the virtual IBAN, whereas most just use it as a receipt tool. Technically, it's a challenge to do it on the outbound, but also there's all sorts of money laundering risks because you're effectively allowing a less well capitalized financial institution with major incentive to onboard customers that you shouldn't to act like a bank.
And you wouldn't really bring that in-house then, right? That would be something that your bank would provide you, but as a corporate, you wouldn't bring that in-house, or would you?
If you're very large, you might. Again,
Okay.
most corporates will use their bank for everything, but at scale, and you need to be truly large for this to be enough of an irritant for you want to own the project, but to own the process. But you may opt to work with a Swift bureau, and so they'll do a lot of the connectivity for you. A lot of the big ERPs will also offer this service for you as well. Usually SAP consultants or SAP have an ecosystem of consultants around them, and those guys love charging a pretty penny for consultation and execution of the implementation and execution of virtual IBANs. It would be rare that you would want to own it. You'd have to have such a large number of people paying in. You'd need a very large accounts receivable team. Let's say 30 or 40 in accounts receivable. You'd need that sort of cost load for it to justify the expense of implementing it, managing, maintaining, and upgrading it over time, for sure.
Super cool. Anything else you want to add, Daniel, on virtual bank accounts? At all? Any cool players, any cool fintechs out there that you've seen that have been doing a really cool job or doing something very different with it?
So certainly for the industry that I operate in, loads. What I probably wouldn't want to dilute your treasury messaging, as most of these are using it to expand the range of banking products they can deliver to an end user. That might be a corporate or an individual. The corporate would certainly be a lot smaller than someone who's concerned about treasury. On large scale, one thing I did see recently, it was a classic, I was trying to sound smart on a LinkedIn post about virtual IBANs. And whenever anyone does that on the internet, there's usually a know-it-all who comes above the parapet and goes, ping! And knocks out you missed a comma on line 3 and you're also wrong about this detail. And boy, was he right on both counts. I did, and he was right. But the specific point that I got gunned down on, which was news to me as well, I was glad to find it out. Virtual IBANs, they are truly virtual bank accounts. Therefore, they offer, so confidently Daniel said in his LinkedIn post, they don't offer the physical protections of a real bank account. So certainly if you're a real human being, or in some cases a small business, you have protections up to, say, £85,000 or whatever the central bank decides they're comfortable with allowing a bank go bust and covering in any given year. So confident Dan said, one of the problems with issuing virtual IBANs to serve as replacement bank accounts is they do not have those protections. And then virtual IBAN legend 53902 responded saying, actually, we've just delivered a virtual IBAN project and you do have the consumer protections afforded. I haven't seen evidence of that, but if that's the case, then that would be a big leap forward in one of the constraints of a virtual bank account. Because if you're a small consumer, a very, very good reason for you to want to work with a big bank is that the accounts they issue you are protected up to X, Y, Z value. Whereas if you were forced to use a small fintech who maybe was solving a bigger problem for you in your niche, you would still have some concerns that if said fintech went bust, and let's be honest, a fintech is inordinately more likely to go bust than a bank, and you can compound that in terms of like there's going to be no bailout for you for the fintech, whereas there would be a bailout for a big enough bank. So the risks are clear and present. So to have that protection afforded is actually quite powerful. Still haven't seen evidence of it, but what did I call him? Virtual IBAN nerd 67231154. If that is true, I'm very impressed with you.
Very cool. Daniel, thank you very much.
So yeah, Daniel's amazing. So that was a super good explanation. So yeah, I mean, virtual accounts have a lot of value to corporate treasurers, especially in terms of if you have loads and loads of invoices coming in, where's your cash coming from? Where's it not coming from? To make sure that it's coming in on time or not. And then the logistics of managing that. Bring that in-house is, you have to be really big to be able to reach critical mass to be able to do that in-house. But I think Daniel explained it all.
100%. So thanks a lot to our friends from Integrated Finance. Thanks a lot, Daniel. This question made us think, and definitely we might have a special episode about virtual accounts in 2024, because there is a lot to talk about, a lot of very interesting use cases. So very much looking forward to explore that topic further, for sure.
And do go check out Daniel's post in the show notes below.
100%.
Where he goes into it more detail.
Yeah, 100%. Awesome. Another challenge, Hussam. There's somebody who asks us how they could develop the Treasury Department from a cost center to an added value function in the organization. That sounds like a familiar topic. What's your take on it?
Yeah, I mean, I think something that's been very common in 2023 that's come up again and again is a shift from Treasury as a indeed cost center to a profit center. Right? So, and I think the ways that we've touched that a lot of the times has been in a high interest rate environment. Corporate treasurers are at their role is at the forefront of it, right? Money is expensive, cash is king, and having liquidity on hand so you don't have to go for some short-term financing is definitely beneficial. Better having money on hand and investing it smartly in assets which are growing right now, such as money market funds, which is something we've covered with Treasury Spring, for example. It has been super beneficial. So I think it's about finding the opportunities like that, right? We've covered a lot of them. Going out and using data to convince your management, the CFO, to go and be able to implement these new things makes you profitable, right? I think we've covered a lot of it. What's been the most insightful for you in this topic, Guillaume?
Yeah, we've talked with quite some people about it. With my background in consulting, that's something that comes back a lot, because obviously the people we get to work with are people who are looking to transform the Treasury Department. To transform your Treasury Department, you need to make your case, right, to your CFO and potentially even higher up, because you need budget. It just doesn't happen overnight. It's also not easy because you have the day-to-day job as a treasurer. I think there is not a single person that we talked to in Treasury that told us that they have a big Treasury Department. It's always a small team compared to the size of the organization, which also means that you hold a particular high responsibility when you're one of those team members, because you're like, when you manage a multi-billion-dollar company's cash, it's like it can be critical. But so that takes me to the point of one of our episodes. We had Kurt Smith on the show, and he's the vice president of the ACTA, the Australian Corporate Treasury Association, and we talked about exactly that: how to take the treasury function from a support function to a strategic function, and like to a business partner of the organization. My main take from this episode and from what we've seen is that, first of all, raise your hands, stand up, and like make your case to have a transformation, have something happening in your Treasury Department which is not just, hey, we're gonna do the day-to-day. We're gonna actually enable cost savings, because they start by this, and then enable like additional business coming in. Like, what if you increase payment terms? What if you negotiate bigger line of credit so you can actually build that plant or that manufactory, and like you enable a bigger part of the business? What if you drive negotiations for your OCF that allows you to have more credits at a lower percentage, a lower interest rate? Like all those things, when you think strategically how to enable the business through treasury, all of a sudden you're not just doing the day-to-day job, you are helping the CFO, helping the board to drive business growth. And I think this is how it's happening. One of the main takeaways from 200 episodes on my side is also talk to the outside world of treasury, talk to the other department, understand how they work. That shouldn't be only the group treasurer's job. Of course, the person at this position usually does it because he or she has to talk to the CFO, to the tax department, talk to the legal department. But as a treasury manager, as a senior treasury analyst, just go there, go to the procurement department, understand how they work, understand how they do contracts, how they do invoicing, how you can help them. Same for the sales team, same for the tax team, same for the legal team, same for AP and AR. Like go out there, advocate for treasury, understand how people do their job, and ask how you can help them from a treasury standpoint. And if you do that, you're not just doing the day-to-day, you're like enabling the whole organization to do a better job, and you're enabling business growth. I think that's really about it. One of the first things that Mike Richards, one of the very first guests, told us is raise your hand. Like stand up, raise your hand, and like go a bit above and beyond. You don't need to like just do 12 hours day of work, right? It's just like do your job, and like then once it's done properly, see how you can help your manager, see how you can help his or her manager, see how you can help all the teams, all the departments to do their job better. And this is how you're going to come from a support function to a true business partner, I think.
100%. Now, there is a hand point. It's come up again and again. We were at the Treasury Career Corner Live with Mike Richards events, actually in London. And then there was a bunch of huge corporate treasurers there and group treasurers there. And that was the point that kept coming up in everyone's career journey was raise your hands, take on the tough challenge. That's 100% a good point.
No.
Yeah, another very technical question. So from a headquarters perspective of an international company, would you recommend onshore or offshore hedging for FX exposure of its subsidiary in Turkey, and why? Where would you search for on/offshore FX forward rates for a comparison?
So I'm going to quote you on that one, Hussam. I have absolutely no clue. Lucky us, we start to have good friends in the treasury world. And here we asked our very good friends from GPS Capital Markets to help us and give us an answer to that question. So just so you know, GPS is a leading corporate foreign exchange brokerage firm who is dedicated to handling companies' foreign exchange. And they don't do just that. They consult with your company to help you identify what's the best approach, what's the best strategy, and then they enable this strategy. We had two of their leaders on the show, David Pierce and Alexander Youngman. Amazing episode, I think an hour and 40 minutes of pure golden nuggets conversation around financial risk management and more precisely FX risk management. Super interesting. Dave is like appearing on, I think it's CNN or whatever the news channel in the US. No, thank you. The news channel in the US, as you see, I'm very well informed. But so big personalities in the world of FX risk management. And we asked them this exact question. And Alex was kind enough to write us an answer that I'm going to read to you just right now. So, and I'm quoting him from A to Z here. This is a great question, and it is a very difficult question, mostly because there are several moving parts to this. Politics and the Turkish Central Bank dash the battles versus what the future holds. The Turkish Central Bank has taken steps in the past, in 2018, to clamp down on the speculation of the Turkish lira, which over time has limited the ways investors can take positions in the lira. Turkey lowered the amount of liras commercial banks were allowed to lend to foreign counterparts, bringing stability to the lira by engineering an increase in the cost of borrowing in liras. At the same time, they hindered the ability to hedge Turkish holdings against volatility. The offshore market has been restricted over the past years. Since June, the central bank has consistently raised interest rates to 35% from 8.5%. in an attempt to slow down inflation, which was running at 61% in November. Currently, a convergence between lira interest rates inside Turkey and abroad is lining up a potential easing of currency restrictions. Some believe this is to be a sign of policy normalizing, but it doesn't take away the challenges the Turkish central bank still faces. On the hedging side of things, the lira declines. So the lira has already lost a third of its value against the dollar this year, one of the worst performances among emerging markets currencies. The lira's depreciation has all Treasury's department operating in Turkey wondering, what now? From a hedging perspective, there are two things to consider. Firstly, because inflation is so high, it is already incredibly difficult to hedge. The difference between the NDF price, so the non-deliverable forward offshore, versus the setting of the spot onshore is costly. Hedging the offshore volatility brings with the widened margins at 4-5% uplift. Equally, what side of the market are you looking to hedge brings challenges from a payments perspective. Buying TRK is deliverable and straightforward. Selling TRK is deliverable but particularly complicated. An alternative solution to hedging at all could be the concept of switching functional currencies, depending on company structure. The idea is to create a TRK entity with a USD or Euro functional balance sheet. From a reporting perspective, profit and loss and balance sheet at USD Euro functional, this brings a more global company stability. Functional currencies are a matter of fact and can be seen as an extension of business. This does not include manufacturing arms. There are real benefits to the business if the goal is to de-risk. When you look at recommendations for hedging, you must look at the entire business structure and weigh up benefits versus cost. There is a time to act, and perhaps with the loosening of the central bank grip, that is now. There are varying elements within the concept of should you hedge onshore versus offshore, and much of that has to do with the setup of the company, the limitations from a payments aspect, and the availability of solutions. At GPS, we tailor for both onshore and offshore options, as well as potentially switching functional currencies. So thanks a lot, Alex. That's a very well elaborated questions. And yeah, thanks a lot to our friends from GPS Capital Markets.
Yeah, and if you want to book a call with Alex directly, you can actually go to our website, to the partners page, because GPS is a valued partner of Corporate Treasury 101. And then you will get a link to go talk to Alex. Tell him we sent you, and he'll be extra nice to you. I'm joking. He's a nice guy. So,
by default.
By default, indeed. But if you tell us we sent you, maybe he'll be a bit less nice. So be careful, maybe if what you say. No.
100%. Cool. Awesome. Hussam, another question for you. Why is there no open access knowledge center / resources, e.g. on YouTube, on how to use TMS software like most SaaS companies offer?
Oh, that's a tough one. I don't know why there's not. So I think TMSs have recently come into the SaaS model, right? Maybe a little bit lagging versus the other software event players. Like with everything, Treasury is not the first to do anything, right? So it's been a common thing. So I think that probably there's just a lag of it, and probably the big TMSs will issue them in the future. But I think also TMSs are a little bit niche, and why would you, if you've purchased a TMS, I guess the TMS provider will probably only look to provide it to you. And if you're a big enough company that you need a TMS, you're probably big enough to also just call up the TMS company and say, hey, give us, can you explain this? Or you probably have an account manager. That doesn't really help people looking around the market. They just kind of want to see what the GUI looks like. What does the interface look like? Is it something that they want to buy versus something else? So maybe they don't have it. They have a bit of a disadvantage there. But there are fintechs. I mean, the cash flow management apps that are coming out every second day. I have seen some of them. Guillaume and I have a running joke that we keep seeing new ones all the time, and that we're in the wrong business if we didn't make our own. But since everyone else is, but I have seen them do that. So in the traditional way. So just in case anyone's wondering what we're talking about, most like SaaS, software as a service companies out there, like they just post on YouTube. Oh, here's how you add another whatever into your software, right? And you kind of see people like clicking through the screens, and they've got the instruction videos and everything like that. And apparently TMSs, the big ones at least, aren't really doing that. So I would speculate it's a lagging effect. And again, if you're getting a TMS, you're big enough to have an account manager, and the smaller ones are doing it, from what I've seen at least. Anything you'd add to that, Guillaume?
Yeah, a couple of things, but couldn't agree more with you, Sam. The other thing, but that comes from my time as a consultant. One of my first project was actually a system selection. And in those particular processes, you would get a demo from the different vendors. So I think back then it was 5 vendors invited in the RFP. And during the beauty parades, you get a demo of like 1 to 2 hours with, as you just said, the account manager. So it takes as far, from my experience, as an RFP to be able to see live, explained to you by an account manager how the system works, what you can do, the different capabilities and so on, and for you to ask them this question. We had with our AI Treasury newsletter, we had an article about Kiribati's one of the Kiribati functions. They were experimenting with large language models, and so they released something which is the large language models for treasury requests using the Kiribati API. And in there are some like videos. I think it's like, I'm watching it right now. It's 4 minutes 30 video of how the system works, but for that particular function. So point being, indeed, we have not seen it so far. I think it could be super interesting as we try to broaden the treasury knowledge overall, like getting anybody who's not really aware of what the TMS is, or like has always been working with, I'm going to name one, so Kiribati to continue, but is about to take a role in a company that uses one of FIS products, or Nomentia or SAP or whatever. I'm just naming as many as I can just to show that it's broad and there are many systems out there. I think it could be super interesting. Like, I would have been personally interested as a consultant back then to have like either 1 hour or 10 hours like breakdown of each functionality in a TMS, accessible online. So definitely something that can be implemented on the market. Who knows? Maybe that's something for City 101 to look into in 2024 or maybe 2025. Let's see. So yeah, definitely lots of interesting stuff to be done still. But to finish on your last point, Hussam, yes, it's funny to see that the new joiners in the market, the one providing like not ad hoc solutions, but like very niche, very specialized solutions, typically cash flow forecasting or cash visibility, are indeed much more keen on showing how their tool works, because I think also they are less established at the moment compared to the bigger ones. So they want to advertise the product and see and show how it works, which makes sense. But definitely an interesting thing to tackle. Yeah. So that wasn't sort of why, but definitely there should be more.
Yeah. Nice. And then I think we're coming near the end. So let's take one more from here. Okay. So fostering awareness, interest, and curiosity about corporate treasury in graduates. That's a big challenge that someone mentioned that they have.
Yeah.
So how would you tackle that, Guillaume?
Yeah, and it's a very interesting one. And to top it up, that's what a lot of group treasurers were telling us about, like how hard it is to recruit young graduates in treasury, because you have close to zero or very little training on treasury matters at university, even if you do a finance degree. And what that means is that actually treasury departments don't really recruit young graduates. They're more going to recruit like as of senior treasury analyst, somebody who's been trained in cash management at the bank or overall in any topic at a advisory firm, or even maybe system vendor. That's a challenge. So thanks to the person asking us this question, but that we've seen group treasurers complain about as well. And I think to begin with the answer is that that's exactly our mission at City 101. We think education is about making a topic fun. Like if you make a topic fun and entertaining, people come back to it easily. You remove the friction from, the toughness of learning something new, especially as niche and as technical as treasury can be. So that's definitely one of our mission, like fostering awareness, making it simple, making it entertaining so people can join in more easily. And then honestly, we have to throw flowers, or whatever the English expression here, Hussam, at certain people doing a great job at it. We've been to Eurofinance, and there was I don't remember his name, but we're gonna put his name in the show notes. Who's a teacher at university in Italy, I believe, and he's like spreading awareness about treasury, and he's like advocating to have a dedicated module into a finance degree about treasury. There is this Vrije Universiteit of Amsterdam, who is also having not master degree, but here again, a very in-depth module about treasury. So we are starting to get there. We've we're working a lot with the AFP lately, and they are very strong on that as well. Like partnering up with universities to, again, foster awareness, but also say, guys, there is like real career opportunities in Treasury. Like if you arrive as a 22, 23 years old young graduate with Treasury knowledge, you're going to be welcomed with open arms in Treasury departments. And I mean, to say the things, there is quite a good money to make. You can check out the Treasury Salary Survey of Mike, who's releasing it on a quarterly basis. Like, it's good money. It's a great career. So definitely, we're not there yet. Some universities are doing it well. Some associations are pushing through to like partner with universities and so on. And on our side of things, on City 101 side of things, we are trying to like make it fun, make it entertaining, putting it on channels that Treasury is nowhere to be seen so far. So YouTube, typically, having a podcast about it, some nice infographics. So yeah, getting there. And I think it's going to take a collective effort. Maybe the last part of the answer is Treasury associations, like the ATIB, I'm thinking, the IACT. All those Treasury associations have some form of Treasury education that they try to push. And it's going to be a collective effort for sure. Treasurers raising their hand again to like go to universities, go to student associations to like push this particular topic. What's your take on it, Hussam, who have seen it also from an outside perspective for like more than a year and a half now?
No, I think everything you said is pretty accurate. I think the people don't really know Treasury as a career when they're at the graduate level. So I think that's the big thing. So I think it's a brand question or like awareness question. And maybe Treasury needs a bit more marketing or needs a marketing department as a industry. But I will say the AFP, having spoken to the president of the AFP privately, Guillaume and I have a few times now, that's exactly what they're trying to do. And I see them doing a really good job of trying to do that. And maybe just to call it, I mean, if anyone knows any universities that would like accreditation from the AFP, I know they're looking to do that. So if you have a university or your university that you studied at and you think, hey, look, it would be cool if this was accredited by the AFP, reach out to us. We'll put you in touch with them. And you can get your university business course or finance course accredited by the AFP. And they're really, really interested in collaborating with more and more universities to tackle exactly this thing. So yeah, reach out to us, treasurepodcast@gmail.com, still works, or the submission form on our website.
Yeah.
And yeah, we can put you in touch and your university in touch with the AFP to go and get accredited to be able to build that funnel of graduates coming into Treasury and being more aware of Treasury.
100%. Amazing. I think that's it. Quite some amazing questions. A few others that we could not cover in this very episode. We have to keep a bit of time for the reflect on the year 2023 and 200 episodes. So what's your takeaway, Hussam, as we reflect on 200 episodes and 2023, which has been quite a year for City 101?
Yeah, I think the appetite for Treasury is there. I think that's my main reflection. People want to listen to Treasury podcasts. I think our stats show that. You're going to share those in a little bit about the numbers, being data driven, of course, as we are as a podcast. So I think the appetite for Treasury is there, which is really, really interesting. I think it was the first time, this year was the first time we met fans face to face. Guillaume, at different events. We attended conferences and events this year. At each one of them, we were actively recognized as, you guys are the guys from Corporate Treasury 101.
True.
That was super, super cool. So if you guys ever do see Guillaume and I, or I, running around in the streets of, I don't know, wherever we end up, at whatever time we are, we seem to be around Europe quite a lot. Next year, hopefully in the US as well for a few different things. Please do come up and say hello. I think that we found that really, really fun at Your Finance, at Treasury Career Corner Live. Yeah. Generally as well, walking around the streets of Portugal. So it's been a really cool journey in that regard. I didn't think 200 was just so far away when we started.
True.
That I never thought of it. Being here is a bit surreal. It's a bit weird. And here's to 200 more.
Yeah, 100%. I think the main thing for me has been the surprise of seeing an enthusiasm for an educational Treasury podcast. Like that was really the main surprise. A welcomed one for sure, but the main intention was indeed to start a podcast together, see how it would go, and for me also to keep on learning on Treasury stuff next to the consultant's job. But quite flabbergasted to see how many people actually listen to the show. and come back. So maybe one of the most important thing, thank you so much to you listening to this episode right now. This show will definitely not be here if it wasn't for you and for the amazing audience that we have. Our very good sponsors, Automation Boutique, actually giving the shout out once more with the ebook that we talked about at the beginning of this episode. We've been able to access to them and to get them in an interview to begin with because of the audience, and because like there is an enthusiasm around Treasury and around all things automation and tech in Treasury. So yeah, thanks a lot for that, and to put a little bit of numbers on it, and to show you how like the community you're part of when you listen to Community 101. The Spotify Wrapped is probably something you're aware of because you probably received yours if you're a user of Spotify over the last weeks. And we were quite surprised to find out that for 180 people, we are the most listened to podcast in 2023. That's absolutely insane. And like when I was checking those numbers, I was like, okay, that's about the number of listens we get for an episode in the first 30 days, a bit more. And we're like, 180 people in one room would be quite a lot. And for 750 people, we are top 5 podcasts. So really, really surprised to see how many people are keen to listen to Treasury, but more importantly, come back to listen to more. That's the most important thing. One of the fact that you just mentioned, I mean, one of the person we got recognized by at Guillaume and Hussam told us like he approached me and he was like, yeah, I'm at episode 64, can't wait to be at episode 100. I was like, but are you listening to all of them? And he was like, yeah, I'm listening them one by one, and I'm at episode 64. I was like, wow, that's absolutely impressive. So yeah, absolutely amazing. We recently crossed the threshold of 50,000 downloads in total. We had the chance to host 39 guests on the podcast, so massive thanks to them as well. Much more to come in 2024. So yeah, as we reflect, extremely grateful basically for the journey. For 2023, we've been able to go to Eurofinance. We've been able to partner up with amazing people, namely Automation Boutique, the AFP, and GPS Capital Markets. So very, very thankful to them and to everybody listening to us. I think that's my main take.
100%. No, indeed. Thank you to all the guests and to all you guys listening. I think that's super, super cool.
Hussam, I think we need to finish on one of the questions that we said as a joke when we launched the Q&A shout out. But we ended up having somebody asking for it. So I think to wrap up this year, 2023, the people need to know, Hussam, what's your favorite ice cream flavor? And I know, being also co-host, co-founder, and I think best friend, I think we can say it. I know you quite like ice cream, so that's gonna be a banger. What's your favorite ice cream flavor?
All right, I mean, it's like picking your favorite child, isn't it? You can't really have a full head. Although secretly you do. I think that's, the other part. Yeah, go home and ask your mom, Guillaume, who's the favorite. There's one. There's no definitely debate. One.
There's no debate.
Anything with nuts in it. I like a good praline.
Interesting.
Or a good hazelnut or a good pistachio. Those would be my top ones. So one of those, I'd say. I'm surprised no one asked about the cafe as a very niche.
That's true.
As a very, if you know, you know, and the Danilos of this world will know.
Exactly.
What that means about Hussam's cafe, or those of you that, or those that you took the ebook, or the first ebook, indeed. Yeah. But no, Guillaume, what's yours? Just to close that up.
Man, I'm a very simple man. I think for me it's vanilla. Anything that has to do with vanilla and maybe with some spark of chocolate. You know what? Actually, stracciatella is probably the one I would take the most of. We in Portugal, I've discovered the pastéis de nata ice cream flavor, which is definitely not my favorite. Sorry for all our Portuguese fans.
Pasta de natas are great.
In themselves, yes.
You love pasta de natas, just to be clear.
Making me sick.
But not the ice cream. Perhaps. It tastes a bit too much like a pastry in an ice cream, which is a bit weird.
Exactly. So yeah, stracciatella, top that up with a vanilla ice cream bowl, and I'm the happiest man in the world.
That's far too plain. But okay, anyway, that's fine.
Yeah, but plain, simple things in life,
judge,
you know?
People will judge how they want to judge it. Exactly. Amazing. Guillaume, and let me finish off by saying thank you for being my host for 200 episodes.
So, Hussam, it was an absolute pleasure. It is an absolute pleasure. Looking forward to more episodes. And thank you for making it so fun and entertaining. definitely love hosting with you.
Here's to 200 more. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks
and,
a lot.
We'll catch you at episode 201.
Absolutely. Have a very nice break. Enjoy the New Year's celebration and talk to you in 2024.